He's Deepwater Assets Management's managing partner. Gene, let's talk a little bit about this. He was walking a bit of a political tightrope. How'd he do?
He is the master at threading the needle, Becky, and in this case, it was 10% politics, 90% business. In terms of the politics, a rare sign of goodwill between a Western business and China leadership. He was upbeat. His language at the China Development Forum said, "I'm thrilled to be back in China." A big distant contrast with what TikTok's reception was on Capitol Hill. And then there was a room of applause. And so there's the political piece, which Cook has for years been astute at, even in the Trump administration, managing through some of the tariffs. He's done a great job with that. And then there's the business side. And this is the threading the needle piece of it. From a business perspective, of course, Apple has 20% of its revenue comes from Greater China. That includes Hong Kong. If you back out Hong Kong, it's about 15% comes from mainland China. The U.S. is 42% of business, so China's a big chunk, and his goodwill, his PR, undoubtedly is good for sales. But then there, of course, is the elephant in the room, which is the production and the supply chain. And I just want to briefly frame in why this is a thread the needle type of a situation. Is that in 2020, Apple gives these numbers out. They publish them about 9 months delayed. But in 2020, about 60% of their revenue came from mainland China, was produced in mainland China. In 2021, that number declined to about 55%. And I estimate in 2022, we don't have the numbers yet, but it's probably going to be between 45 and 50. And so while Cook is there with a smile on his face and meeting with all the appropriate people, his company is moving as quickly as it can to diversify away from China. And to put an exclamation point on that is that in 2021, of the 150 new suppliers Apple added, 80% of those were from outside of China. So Tim Cook gets it. He's playing the good role, and he's doing a fantastic job of that.
How long will it be before it is not so dependent on China? I mean, you're still talking about years and years down the road.
That's the reality of a business that has such massive supply and the number of units that come from China. So yes, it's years away. But to put some perspective on that, it's declining about 5 to 10% per year. It's never going to be zero, but they're just looking for just greater diversity. So it's going to be a lot of that pace is going to be with its partners. Foxconn, which is based in Taiwan, but 70% of their production comes from mainland China. That, of course, they're the ones who assembled the iPhone. Foxconn said on March 15th that they want to diversify away from mainland China to Vietnam, to Mexico, and to the U.S. And so, Becky, to answer that question, some of that pace is going to be dependent on how fast Foxconn can move. But we know where this is going. It's going to go to Apple with a supply chain that is dramatically more diversified than where it was 5 years ago.
Okay, Gene, all of that, what do you do with the stock right now? I mean, you've got Mike Wilson out talking about how expectations are too high when it comes to earnings expectations, that you're going to see numbers that have to be taken down significantly. He's not talking about Apple. He's not talking about technology. He's talking about the S&P 500 overall. How do you see that kind of playing out? Just if there's a recession, if numbers have to come down, is this a goodbye?
Apple's going to be impacted. If just like any company, it will be impacted. And I think there comes a question about relative performance. And I think ultimately this is still a great place to be, in part because of our dependence upon their products. And yes, they will lose sales in a difficult environment. The Street's looking for revenue in the March quarter to be down 5%, but a spring back to plus 3% in the June quarter. So that is negative if there is a recession. But I think ultimately is that when things do stabilize, I think these products have just become such the fabric of how we live our lives that they will undoubtedly see a spring back. And then you have some new product categories that they potentially could get into as well that I think could further expand the multiple.